Dawgs podcast with your hosts, Blake Reneker, Justin Charles, John Nye, and Josh All.
What's going on, Browns fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Dawgs podcast presented by Omaha Steaks. If you haven't gotten Omaha Steaks anniversary package with your 4 free steak burgers and 4 free jumbo franks included, head over to omahasteaks.com, enter code DAWGS, DAWGS into the search bar. Get that deal now while it's going on. Josh with you today. Just wanted to get a quick update on some of the stuff going on from training camp. We were at Hall of Fame weekend all weekend, and it was a ton of fun. We got to do a lot of cool Brown stuff, meet a lot of people. And if you haven't been following us on social media, check it out, because all of our pictures, all our posts, the videos of Joe Thomas getting his gold jacket, everything, it's all on there. It's really cool stuff, so make sure you check that out. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Threads, YouTube posts, everywhere that you can, social media, we're doing it. And if you're watching this video on YouTube, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. We just hit 7,000 subscribers last week, and we're already making the push for 7,100 this week. So let's just keep it going, keep subscribing. We appreciate it. We love that you guys are just continuing to help us grow this channel, and we're going to continue bringing you awesome content every week. Today, I want to talk about some of the unfortunate injury news that came out yesterday from Browns training camp. And I want to talk about a rising sleeper, we'll call him, on the team that I think we need to be paying attention to as the preseason goes along. But before I dive into that stuff, I just want to remind you, if you want to play fantasy football with us, we have set a deadline. It is August 20th, Sunday, August 20th. Make sure if you want to play fantasy football with us, you head to jointhedawgs.com, become an official Dog Pack member, join the Patreon group. It's awesome. You get an extra episode every week with the After Hours show. You get to join the private Discord, which is just a ton of fun. Everybody loves that. So just interacting with us more. There's a lot of great perks being in the Dog Pack, and you get to play fantasy football with us if you want, but you got to join now. You got to drop us a message and say, yes, I want to play fantasy football. There's a registration link and a password. We'll send you all that. But August 20th is the deadline. So if you want to play fantasy football, get in now. Leagues are filling up. We're going to have to set the deadline. We did the 20th. And if you want to play, I can't reiterate enough, make sure you join now. Okay, so let's talk about injuries from yesterday. Well, that came out from camp yesterday, but defensive end Alex Wright, defensive end Isaiah Thomas, 2 of our second-year guys. They were rookies last season. You know, we had a lot of hopes for them as in terms of just the depth rotational pieces behind Miles, behind Za'Darius, Obo, these guys. They both suffered significant knee injuries during the Hall of Fame game against the Jets last week. So these were not injuries that came out of camp yesterday. They were actually suffered last week, but the news just came out yesterday. Kevin Stefanski said they will be out for an extended period of time. So here we go. The injury bug hits us early and often, like it does every year. Every NFL team has to deal with this. So, you know, we're not alone, but it does suck real bad, because these were 2 guys that we really expected to be heavy rotational guys, spelling Miles, spelling Za'Darius, spelling Obo, situational pieces that the Browns could mix and match, you know, against offensive line. It's very disappointing to hear. Now, the report was not that they're going to miss the season or anything like that, but definitely they're not going to be back for the preseason. They're not going to be back probably for the first few weeks of the regular season, I would imagine. I don't know what significant means in this statement, but I think we can probably reasonably expect them to miss the first 4 games of the season. So then, in a corresponding move, the Browns signed defensive end Charles Wiley. Wiley spent time last year with the Baltimore Ravens and the New York Giants. Just doing a little background on him real quick for you guys. He played in the XFL this past season. He had 6 tackles and a sack in 7 games. As in terms of college, he played at UTSA and Ole Miss. And during his college career, he recorded 136 tackles and 11 sacks. So there's your camp body. There's your replacement piece for the time being while Wright and Thomas recover from their knee injury. So while the defensive end injuries were pretty disappointing, they were more of rotational pieces. So we didn't lose starters, but we definitely lost what I would consider to be semi-key contributors on defense. But this next injury really hurts if it's a long-term injury, and that is running back Jerome Ford limped off the field yesterday. Now, the team came out and said that he suffered a hamstring injury. He was seen later with a sleeve on his calf. He gave the guys a thumbs up, indicating that he's okay, but hamstring injuries, soft tissue issues in training camp are not good because they usually, now I'm not saying this is for everybody, but very often they will follow a player throughout the entire NFL season. So my expectation would be Jerome Ford is shut down. He is not going to be practicing at training camp. He is not going to be playing in any of the preseason games. Now, if this hamstring injury is minor and, it's being blown up a little more than what it needs to be, yeah, okay, we might be able to see him in a preseason game later, maybe the final game. Definitely not this week. And I think the Browns are going to be very cautious with this because he is the next guy up after Nick Chubb. And not only is he the next guy up, but he is the guy who's going to be in there when Nick Chubb needs a spell, when Nick Chubb needs to come out. So it's not like he's just a backup. He is going to be a role player in his own right. So we need to make sure that he's okay, that this hamstring injury does not nag him throughout the season or cause him to miss games. We don't want to get, into week 2 and all of a sudden this hamstring injury comes back up because we didn't, mitigate the risk during training camp. Couple others. So offensive guard Drew Forbes, obviously a backup depth piece on the O-line. He went out at practice on Monday with an injury, and then this one, I feel so bad for Jakeem Grant because here we go, wide receiver and kick punt returner Jakeem Grant limped off the field Monday with an injury. Now, I don't know what that injury was, but obviously it was some sort of lower body. And this is a guy coming back from an Achilles injury last season that he suffered in the preseason. And he's older. I mean, this guy, what is he, 29, 30 years old? Recovering from an Achilles injury at that age is a lot different than recovering when you're 21, 22. It's been great to see him back with the team, practicing and everything. But I don't know what this injury is, but it's just not a good sign for a guy who might not make the roster anyway, especially with somebody like Jalen Darden, a younger player at the receiver returner position, really making a name for himself at camp. And my expectation at this moment in time would be Jakeem Grant is not on the Cleveland Browns roster when the season begins. I do believe his spot, his role is going to go to Jalen Darden, barring any sort of injury as we go along the preseason here. And also, in terms of the wide receiver room, let's talk about a wide receiver who is really starting to make a name for himself, and now we really need to talk about him in consideration of making the 53, because Anthony Schwartz is not it. He proved that in the Hall of Fame game. He's been proving that in camp. I feel bad for the kid, but again, we say it all the time, not everybody's cut out to play in the NFL. So we need to remove Anthony Schwartz from a roster spot, and I think that roster spot is going to go to this next guy who we're going to talk about right after this quick break. Browns fans in Ohio, we have an unbeatable NFL preseason offer for you from Caesars Sportsbook. New customers get their first bet insured up to $1,250 by using our code DAWGSFULL while signing up. Not only will your first bet be completely insured, but you're also directly supporting our podcast. So if you haven't already joined the Caesars Sportsbook community, now's the perfect time to make your move. Just remember to enter our code DAWGSFULL during sign up and place that first bet. This offer is only available for new customers who are 21 and older and physically present in Ohio. Please gamble responsibly. If you or a loved one has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Check the episode description for the full terms of the offer. All right, so let's talk about him. He is Austin Watkins Jr., the wide receiver the Browns signed. Was it last week or the week before, following the Marquise Goodwin injury, following the Anthony Schwartz injury when he got placed on the NFI list? We talked about it last week. Interestingly enough, even though he had suffered a hamstring injury just the week before in camp, Anthony Schwartz was rolled out there in the Hall of Fame game, meaning the Browns were very concerned with him and his level of play. They needed to see him on the field. They made sure that he got action early in the Hall of Fame game, and as soon as he got his first touch, took it for a 7-yard end-around rush and fumbled the ball, turned it over to the Jets. It was his first touch of the game, like I said, and he fumbled it. It just is another miscue in the long line of mistakes from Anthony Schwartz. drop passes, broken off routes, just not being a reliable player. He's not, and I'm not bashing him as a person. It's him as a football player. He's not a tough football player. He plays scared. Anybody who watches him play can see it. He's afraid of contact. He can't hold on to the ball through contact. He's just not a physically tough player. So that's where we're going to start talking now about Austin Watkins. So there have been several highlight videos coming out of Browns training camp. Austin Watkins making big plays, big catches. He's developing what seems to be a very nice rapport with both Deshaun Watson and Josh Dawgs. This is a guy that, he spent, he was a undrafted free agent in 2021, signed with the San Francisco 49ers. I don't know if he ever made the active roster. He was with their practice squad. In 2022, last season, he was on the practice squad with Tampa Bay. But both of these teams have very extensive wide receiver rooms. So it's understandable why he never cracked the roster with either of those teams. So he played in the USFL with the Birmingham Stallions. I believe he won a championship, if I read that correctly. 16 receptions for 197 yards and a touchdown over, I want to say it was like 8 games or something like that in the season. So not outworldly or otherworldly stats or anything like that. But what we're seeing from Watkins, and we saw it in the Hall of Fame game, Watkins was the Browns' leading receiver, actually, alongside Cedric Tillman. They both had 2 receptions for 35 yards, but Watkins was the one who came up with the touchdown from Dorian Thompson-Robinson there in the second half. A nice slant pass, hit him in stride, and I mean, if you go back and watch the replay of that touchdown pass, the shake move that he put on the corner actually fell. I don't know if he slipped or whatever, but he fell. He was not able to stay on the route with Austin Watkins. Shook his defender, wide open slant route, took it in, untouched for the touchdown. It was an awesome play. It really was. And it's just indicative of the type of plays that this guy has been making in training camp. So there's a lot of hype right now. There's a lot of buzz. And I think with the injuries to Marquise Goodwin, now Jakeem Grant, Anthony Schwartz is not going to make this roster. I would be shocked. Austin Watkins could be that guy. You could be looking at Amari Cooper as your wide receiver 1, of course. DPJ and Elijah Moore kind of in your second in line to command targets at least. So there's 3 guys. Obviously, Cedric Tillman is the rookie. Everybody is excited to see what he can do. Guys, David Bell's making this roster. I don't know why this stuff on social media keeps going around about David Bell not making the roster. The Browns love David Bell. Even though fans may not love him or think that he can produce on the field, trust me, the team loves David Bell. He's making the roster. So there's 5 guys right there. Jalen Darden, we already talked about. He's going to make this roster, not just as a returner either, but I think they're going to be his specialty, but I think he can be the perfect Elijah Moore backup. He can kind of go into the role that Elijah Moore is going to play when Elijah Moore needs to come out, take a breather, that kind of stuff. And we've talked so much about this team is probably going to keep 7 receivers, and that 7th receiver is, at this moment, looks like it's going to be Austin Watkins Jr. 6'2", 210 pounds. Now, here's what's interesting is NFL Draft Profile actually compared him to Gabriel Davis of the Buffalo Bills, and we all know now, while he's not the most consistent player in football, Gabriel Davis is still a very good receiver, and he plays his role very well for the Bills. They actually had a middle round draft grade on Watkins. Like I said, he ended up going undrafted. I'm not sure why. I've been trying to find out if there was a reason, whether it was like a health concern or something off the field, something that caused him to slip. Wasn't able to find anything on him yet, but as soon as we do, or if we do, I'll let you know. But he was graded pretty well for a wide receiver in the draft, and went undrafted. He's been on a couple practice squads the last 2 years, played in the USFL, and now he's with the Browns. And some guy, not everybody comes out like Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase. A lot of guys take years to develop into the role they're going to play in the NFL, and no one's expecting Austin Watkins to come out and be a superstar or a key role player even, but to be a reliable depth piece on the Browns roster is a huge, huge thing, because we remember in years past, injuries happen all season long. There are going to be injuries. We're already dealing with it in training camp. You have to have a next man up attitude, and the next man up is not Anthony Schwartz. The next man up needs to be a guy like Austin Watkins. We've seen it with guys like Jalen Baldwin and Kadero Hodge and Jamarcus Bradley, and some of these guys that are practice squad players get elevated to the active roster during the season. They come out and they actually make a big catch or two during a game. It's like, oh wow, okay, so the Browns actually have some pretty good guys, lower down the pecking order in line to step up when they need to be called upon. And I think Austin Watkins can be that and more. I don't think he's just a practice squad body that they're going to keep around. I think if he continues to show out in training camp and in the preseason games, which he's like one of my top guys to watch this week against the Commanders, if he continues to play like this, the Browns would be taking a huge risk putting him on the practice squad that another team's going to come sign him, because there are teams out there with some big holes at wide receiver, and a guy like Watkins, if he continues to progress the way he is and show what he's showing on the field, he's not going to stick on a practice squad this year. He was on the practice squad the last 2 years. It's not going to happen for a third. He is showing that he is deserving of a 53-man spot, and I hope it's with the Browns. You just watch the game Friday. Go back and watch the highlights from the Hall of Fame game. He's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive for a guy who just signed on. There was an interview with DTR after the game, and he commented specifically on Austin Watkins' football IQ, the way he's been able to come into training camp a little bit later than the other guys, pick up the playbook really quickly, and be able to execute on the field. He's come a long way in a short amount of time, and I'm pretty impressed with the way he's been playing. Okay, so that's it for today. I just want to do a quick update on the injuries, on Austin Watkins, things to look for this week. Pay attention to the news coming out of training camp. The guys are going to be doing an episode later this week previewing the game against the Commanders, so stay tuned for that. No Throwback Thursday this week, but Kenny Mack is going to do a Throwback Thursday for next week, highlighting Joe Hayden, who we actually got to meet at the Hall of Fame Gold Jacket dinner on Friday night. Awesome guy. One of, all of our all-time favorite Browns players. If you are old enough that you watched Joe Hayden from the time he was a rookie to the time he left the team, I mean, he was Cleveland Browns. He was an awesome guy. So stay tuned next week for that episode. And DF is going to have something coming out later this week as well. So a lot of content coming. I just wanted to update everybody on what's going on with the team early in the week, and everybody's going to handle the stuff for later in the week. So until they get with you, guys, stay tuned to the channel, follow us on socials, sign up for fantasy. Again, we appreciate everybody, love you guys, and go Browns.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Dawgs Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Twitter at the Dawgs Podcast. Get your thoughts on the show at thedawgspodcast.com.